Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy RJ Game News USA here, back today with another video. And today we're going to be looking at the Rotten Tomato scores for Jackass Best and Last. So if you like this kind of content, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. So we used to do this a lot more on the channel, where we would take a movie and we would go over its Rotten Tomato score. Usually now I more favor like personal reviews and stuff. But I kind of thought, well, a personal review of me talking about Jackass Best and Last would be like, well, that was funny. Well, that made me laugh. Here's a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I really like the idea of bringing comedies back to movies. And luckily, with Scary Movie not being really that great, in my opinion, Jackass is lighting the torch. So glad to see that it appears to be awesome. I will be watching this movie very shortly, and if I don't think it's awesome, then I will come back and say, hey, yo, update, movie actually sucked. But everything I've seen, this is going to be fucking hilarious. I've enjoyed all the Jackass movies. I think it's a more safe bet than even Scary Movie was going into it. So without further ado, let me say it got an 88% overall from the critics, and the fans give it an 85% on the popcorn meter. So we're going to go through and look at some critic reviews. We got Ed Potton with a fresh tomato saying it's inventive in a totally crass way and also surprisingly poignant. Neil Bond with a fresh tomato says a daring parting salvo of unruly chaos to spice up the pedestrian mundanity of modern life. A vicarious way to live outside the prim and proper, watching others do what we never dare. Katie Walsh with a fresh tomato says it is also in my heart the best Jackass movie because it's best expresses the true meaning of Jackass, which of course is friendship, and doing ill-advised things with butts. Ian Thomas Malone with a fresh tomato says there's a lot of joy to be had watching the Jackass career retrospective that almost forgives the inherent laziness of the premise and the complete irrelevance of the newer crew. Well, you still gave it a fresh tomato despite the negative criticism. Dana Han Klein with a fresh tomato says left the theater feeling lighter as a person and not losing my lunch, which was a real risk during several scenes. Jam-packed with quintessential mayhem from the gang, though there were an awful lot of classic bits recycled from other viewings. Yeah, I do want to point this out. That's one thing that did have me concerned, is the classic bits are funny, but did they do too much recycling of old bits to pad out a runtime? Like, that would be my biggest criticism concern going in. Is I've seen some of this before and we're watching it again. Amy Nicholson with a Rotten Tomato says, I'm no sadist. They've suffered plenty for our amusement. Still, it's a shame that for the first time in 2.5 decades of cringe comedy, the goof-ahs feel forced. I don't know what that word means. But yeah, obviously she's coming at it from a negative space. She said it's cringe comedy from the jump. Jackass is legitimately funny. I don't care what anybody says. It's not cringe. Fran Chico with a fresh tomato. In an era marked by sequels that appeal to nostalgic emotions such as Toy Story 5, Jackass Best and Last is bound to bring a tear to the eye of an entire generation. Randy Jones with a fresh tomato says, if you thought Toy Story 5 was only the 4th sequel dropping this month that would make you cry, Think again. Yeah, it was funny to notice that Toy Story 5 was dropping, and then a week later, here comes Jackass Best and Last. We have Jess Phillips with a fresh tomato saying, while Jackass Best and Last might not be nothing new for die-hard fans, it's a fitting end to the film series and ironically a great introduction for anyone who hasn't seen it before and wants to dive into the slapstick back catalog. And you know what? I really thought Jackass Forever was going to be the last one anyway. But by saying best and last, this is truly the last, for sure. David Fear, the fresh tomato, says, cinema began with a train pulling into a station. It now ends with a pair of drooping prosthetic testicles slapping against a stripper pole. Thank you for your service, Knoxville & Co. Your watch has ended. That's kind of funny. He still gave it a fresh, though. Mark Kermead, with a fresh tomato, said, this is the one I enjoyed the most. That's going to be difficult to pull off. I really like Jackass Forever. I like all the Jackass movies. Sergio Bernstein, with the fresh tomato. The closing film continues to display that furious, transgressive, and unusually artistic tendency that has always characterized an inevitably hilarious series that understandably has been praised by John Waiters. Sean McGreedy, with a fresh tomato, says, still some things never change. Shot at the crotch is funny. Lance Briggs will vomit on his camera. Age comes for all of us, and laughter is the best release for life's ills. I agree. Laughter is the best release for life's ills. Need more of this in theaters. Hannah Strong with a fresh tomato. It might not be the most raucous or ridiculous send-off, but best and last feels like the finale that Jackass deserves. Well, you gave it a fresh tomato, so. Brian Talcarico with the fresh tomato. It plays like a 25th high school reunion, has new memories intertwined with old ones. I like that. Although these guys are, I think they're older than the 25th high school reunion. I think it's more like their 35th. Just saying. Nicholas Delgado, with a fresh tomato, reminds us that growing older doesn't necessarily mean growing up. Sometimes it just means taking one final hit for the boys. You know, that really gets me thinking. When's the last time I'm hanging out with the buds in my life? Right? Usually you don't know when the last is. You know, when's the last time I step up to the bar, get a shot, laugh with my friends? When will I grow out of it or get too old? I don't know. But for these guys, I imagine it had to be pretty emotional to know for sure this was it. Sadant Adikia, with a fresh tomato, says, how can you not be romantic about Jackass? Cole Groth, with a fresh tomato. Even if it isn't willing to embrace the all-out madness of the younger days, it's still a fitting, fragmented farewell to a legendary crew. Seems fair. Sean Burns with a rotten tomato. Yet another reason the streaming era sucks. Now you have to go to the movie theater to see deleted scenes. Huh. Oh, I wonder. Okay. All right. So actually, that makes me more happy to understand that maybe a lot of what they showed from the past Jackass were deleted scenes. I don't know, maybe that's what he means. And finally, our final review, a fresh tomato from Marshall Schaefer, who says no other franchise film could list both an Academy Award winning screenwriter and a butthole consultant in its closing credits, and that's an art. Thank you, Jackass, Johnny Knoxville and crew, for your service. Sad to see you go, but you gave us some great memories. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. RJ, out.